How long will Ashes of Creation Alpha 2 last? Outside of when Alpha 2 will launch, that is probably one of the bigger questions right now. I tend to think the game has a long ways to go, which means Alpha 2 will be live for a long time since Alpha 2 is live until very close to the full launch of the game. And I think we'll have a much better idea of how long Alpha 2 will last once they give us the Alpha 2 guide that talks about what content will be in Alpha 2, and certainly after we've played it for a bit. But I continue to say it, this game is massive, and I think they really didn't start making major progress on the game until around 2021. So I think this game still probably has a lot of years of development left. The hopium dealers out there suggest Intrepid is withholding things from us in the live streams, therefore the game is a lot further along than people think. And maybe that is the case, but I also remember that being said prior to Alpha 1. But once we got into Alpha 1, we didn't really get much more than what had been teased before Alpha 1. So maybe they have changed and they don't show everything. And they do continue to say they are withholding certain things from us to not spoil the game before Alpha 2 testing. Here's Margaret and Steven in the last live stream talking about that specifically.
There's always stuff that is simultaneous. People, sometimes they think that what we're showing on the live stream is all we have. Homies, we got like 500 things going on simultaneously parallel to one another. So this is just what we want feedback on for this month.
So sure, they might be withholding some things, but then they are also aggressively trying to reduce expectations for Alpha 2.
As I'm watching the commentary out there, it feels more and more to me that the expectation is that you are going to be playing a game. And I will go back to what I have said multiple times in the past. This is not an Eastern port over for localization of a completed game that many of us have experienced in MMO land. This is a true alpha. There will be lots of bugs. There will be potential wipes. There will be content that is not finished. There will be things that when you are playing may not be fun because of that. Obviously, the goal is that our core systems and the experience is going to be an enjoyable one, but you are not playing a game, a finished game at that point. You are literally playing a true alpha. And I want you in the community and I want the content creators to assist us in making sure that that level of expectation is understood by broader audiences. Now, I'm very excited for what we're building. I think it looks great. I think it plays great. I think what we are presenting as a product is something that a large fraction of the market share of MMO players want.
Then we can also talk about biomes and the fact we have only seen the eastern half of the Riverlands and what appeared to be not a very fleshed out desert biome in the last livestream. Narc made some great points on the desert biome minimap being missing, Lionhold being the map location, which is the starting village in the Riverlands, and the mobs basically are copy-pasted from the Riverlands mobs we have seen several times. There's also a forum post that goes into this into detail, which I'll link below. To be clear, this isn't me being critical of Intrepid for potentially not having much fleshed out on the desert biome yet, or potentially not having the western side of the Riverlands done either. The map of Ashes Creation is huge. Riverlands itself is around 36 square kilometers. For context, New World at launch was around 40 square kilometers. And the changing world with the node system and the myriad systems that are attached to nodes means it will take a long time to fully flesh out a biome. I don't think it is unreasonable to suggest that the Riverlands might be the only biome that is close to finished, with the others maybe being complete in terms of environmental assets but still needing a lot of work in terms of content. And honestly, I'm not even convinced the Riverlands is anywhere near finished yet, considering we've only seen the eastern side of the Riverlands. We've heard over and over again that the Riverlands is the main focal point of Alpha 2, which means that the other biomes that make it in at the start of Alpha 2 might be very limited in terms of their content in comparison to the Riverlands. Steven recently said that the environmental assets had been completed for 7 biomes roughly, but there are 18 planned biomes. There are a lot of systems that we haven't seen, or if we have seen them, they are pretty limited. So sure, maybe they are withholding stuff from us, but I have my doubts. Combine that with Intrepid aggressively trying to reduce expectations for Alpha 2, and also stating several times recently that the Alpha 2 testing cycle is going to be a long-term testing cycle. So my early prediction with limited information before we get into Alpha 2 is it will last an absolute minimum of 3 years, but I wouldn't rule out 5 years. And I'm certain they don't have infinite funding considering the math on how much 200 employees developing an MMO in San Diego costs. So there is a time limit to complete the project based on funding. I don't know what the time limit is, but I do know they can't be in development forever. And if all this has gotten you a bit down, well, how about a pick-me-up in the form of a fake-ass sponsor segment before we go into a bonus segment speculating on the Alpha 2 launch date. Today's sponsor is goats. Goats are kings of the mountain and have some insane climbing skills. Goats have rectangular pupils, which gives them a field of vision of around 320 to 340 degrees, much higher than humans at 160 to 210 degrees. Goats can learn a name like a dog can and can respond to their name when called. People don't agree on much these days, but it is hard to find too many people that don't like goats. Thanks, goats. So what about when Alpha 2 will actually launch? Well, considering quarter 3 is almost here and they have not given us a launch month yet, late in quarter 3 seems likely and a delay to quarter 4 absolutely cannot be ruled out despite Steven saying they're on track for quarter 3. Intrepid uses agile development, and agile development uses sprints that exist within milestones to focus development in certain areas. They started talking about these milestones a few years ago, and even once some of them have started and finished. And I went back and tracked them as best I could to see roughly how long they are. The rough length of each milestone has been around 95 days. Milestone 9 is said to finish out the feature set for Alpha 2's launch, and it started on April 11th. So July 15th would be a rough estimate of when Milestone 9 might end and launch Milestone 10, which is polish and bug fixing for Alpha 2. 95 days after July 15th is October 19th, so early quarter 4. But it is possible that Milestone 10 ends up being shorter than average because after all, Alpha 2 testing is designed for finding and fixing bugs and polishing. So I think late September or early October as of now are the most likely start dates for Alpha 2. And then add 3 to 5 years to that, plus a month or two for the beta testing phases, and the full launch of this game might not be until later in 2027 at the earliest, or even as late as 2029 if Alpha 2 testing does drag on for a full 5 years. But again, this is based on limited current information. A few months into Alpha 2, if I've ran out of content, maybe we will revisit this with better information to work with. And that's all I have for this one. Ryvelations returns finally again tonight after a 2-week break. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.